Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins with Yuri Boyka, the former reigning prison fight champion, who hurt his knee while fighting George Chambers, a few years ago. Because of his catastrophic wounds, the great Boyka is now looked down upon by Markov and the guards, who turn him into a jail cleaner. Despite the fact that Boyka is no longer a fighter, mixed martial arts contests are still performed at Chornya prison, with Vladimir Sykov as the strongest fighter. The fights are sponsored by Gaga, the mafia lord who previously promoted Boyka and Chambers. Following the fight, Boyka, who now has long hair and a bushy beard, is scrubbing the prison floor, when Gaga and Markov stroll by. One of Gaga's workers recognizes Boyka from his limp stride, and hands him a bill, which he promptly refuses. Meanwhile, Gaga's jail tournament business has developed into an inter-prison martial arts competition, called the Prison Spets Competition, PSC, that gathers the top prison fighters from across the world to compete for prizes, such as erasing all criminal records and early release. Boyka states his willingness to participate in the inter-prison martial arts event, when Gaga informs him he would have a preliminary round at Chornya prison. However, Gaga declines, because he believes Boyka's knee ailment would prevent him from participating in the fights. Boyka is so eager to breathe freely that he starts working hard to get his knee back in shape. He shaves his beard and trims his hair. A few days later, shortly after the current champion, Vladimir Sykov beat his opponent in the final round of the prison tournament, Boyka pours water on him, and challenges him to a fight. Sykov, whose rage has already erupted as a result of Boyka's arrogant conduct, accepts the challenge quickly. Their match is brief, as Boyka easily defeats Sykov, becoming Russia's representative for the tournament. Returning to the ring and tasting victory once more rekindles Boyka's battling spirit, which had long been absent from the bout that made his reputation. He is soon sent to the Gorgon prison in Georgia, and is joined by 8 other jail fighters from around the world, who would later compete in the PSC martial arts tournament. Warden Kus assembles the fighters, and gives them instructions. Apart from Boyka, the event features Krates from Croatia, Dupont from France, Mavros from Greece, Lam Chai from North Korea, Silva from Brazil, Turbo from America, and Dolar from Colombia. When they are led to their cells, they notice officers cleaning a large area of the prison that would be utilized as a battle arena. Gaga and 2 other mobsters, Farnati and Rezo, debate betting difficulties, with Rezo suggesting that they bet on only one fighter with the best chance of winning, Dolar, who is also Rezo's regular fighter. Gaga, who bet on Boyka's triumph, and Farnati, who bet on Turbo's victory, keep their respective mainstay fighters, believing in their fighting talents. The prisoners are transferred to a stone mining region the next day, where foreign warriors are made to do hard labor under the watchful eye of the guards, while Dolar sits back and reads a book. The other fighters are apparently only permitted to practice for the bout for an hour each day, and still have to work long hours in the rock quarry. However, Dolar is treated so special with private sparring sessions, and is not allowed to undertake heavy work. Boyka has a disagreement with Turbo in the mines, because he believes Turbo talks too much and does too little. When the boxers return to prison for an hour of training, Kus approaches Dolar, and hands him a regimen of performance-enhancing pills. The tournament day arrives soon. The audience appears ecstatic, and bet a big sum of money to support their fighters, which will really boost Gaga's and the other mafia's income. The first fight is Silva against Mavros, which Silva wins. Turbo's fight comes next, and he easily defeats Croatia's Krates, making Farnati ecstatic. The fights proceed, and this time it is Boyka's turn to face Dupont, the French boxer. Boyka wins again, and this time Markov, the guards and all the prisoners at the Chornya prison cheer as he wins the fight and progresses to the semi-finals. The last fight pairs Dolar against Lam Chai, and Dolar easily wins. Boyka, Turbo, Dolar and Silva move on to the next round. The defeated fighters are removed from the location. Kus orders his soldiers to execute the boxers who did not advance to the semi-finals, believing they would be returned to their respective countries. When the fighters go to the rock quarry the next day, Boyka gets into another argument with Turbo, which results in a fight, and they are confined inside a very narrow solitary cell. They disclose the hard labor and the favorable treatment Dolar receives after they are ultimately released, thanks to certain machinations by Gaga and Farnati. The 2 mob leaders immediately go to Kus in his office, hearing firsthand about the prison's treatment of their finest warriors. When they arrive, they are greeted by PSC mastermind Rezo, who explains that the competition has always been designed to maximize profit, minimizing risk. The forced labor is done on purpose to physically weaken the other fighters, allowing Dolar to win the fight. Rezo proposes that Gaga and Farnati liquidate all of their assets, and place their bets on Dolar, who will win, and has been assured a double profit by Rezo. Gaga and Farnati agree to this arrangement, after realizing their allegiance to their combatants is limited to their money. Meanwhile, Boyka and Turbo fight again in the rock quarry, but they eventually find some common ground. They gradually gain trust in one another, and concentrate their efforts on defeating Dolar in the tournament. They begin to use hard labor in mining as part of their training, to build their physical strength, finding that the PSC tournament is orchestrated by the mobsters, who may have already selected the winner. One day, Turbo discovers he has a knee problem after lifting a boulder with Boyka. He gives him a pinch of the root of an herbal plant, which is thought to reduce the injury's agony. Boyka, who notices Turbo's tattoo, inquires about it. Turbo claims that his son and daughter inspired the tattoo. When Turbo questions Boyka about why he fights, he responds that God has given him a gift, making him the best fighter in the world, so he must fight to earn respect. Meanwhile, it appears Gaga has upped his bet in response to Rezo's advice. Boyka will face Silva in the semi-finals. The fight between the two is heated. Eventually, Boyka is able to knock Silva out with a triangle punch. After he is proclaimed the winner, and entitled to advance to the final round, Boyka assists Silva to his feet, and compliments him for a superb battle. Silva, on the other hand, is executed not long after. Recognizing that Boyka and Turbo are more powerful than predicted, Rezo and Warden Kus develop a strategy, and direct the jail guards to beat Turbo to a pulp. Boyka is taken aback by Turbo's bruised condition as he walks to his cell. Dolar insults Boyka, refers to him as the toilet champion, and threatens to kill Turbo in the semi-final bout. Boyka stays calm, doesn't reply to him. After that, Boyka works out and focuses on his knees in particular. Dolar, on the other side, works hard in preparation for the fight tomorrow night. Boyka cannot stand looking at Turbo, who is still training, despite being badly hurt. When the inmates are brought in for the next round of hard labor the next day, Boyka tries to persuade Turbo to flee, rather than confront Dolar in his damaged state. Knowing Turbo was once a soldier, Boyka devises a strategy for him to escape into the forest, where security is lax, and survive long enough to contact the black market. At first, Turbo is hesitant, but when another prisoner tells him that the losing fighters are executed, he reconsiders. Boyka tries to break his chains, but is apprehended by the guards, forcing the two to fight the guards for the key. Turbo dashes into the forest after being liberated, while the guards immobilize Boyka with weapons, and is sent to prison, where he is greeted by Rezo and Kus, and Gaga, who informs him that he has changed his bet, and will now fully support Dolar, who has already won. Knowing he has lost all backing, Boyka vows to smash Gaga and the Mafia's bets by defeating Dolar. The ultimate battle starts. Since Turbo escaped, Dolar proceeds to the last round and fights Boyka. Both the crowd and the mobsters are wagering heavily on this fight, virtually unanimously on Dolar's triumph. The fight is heated, with Dolar grabbing the lead, with his highly rapid and sharp block and hand assaults, aided by his larger physique than Boyka. Knowing that Boyka suffered a severe knee injury, Dolar does not waste the opportunity to use this to his advantage. He catches Boyka's knee, and seriously injures him. He doesn't stop there and keeps attacking Boyka's knee. Boyka recovers after losing his kicking ability and agility, depending on his endurance and pain tolerance, despite suffering multiple catastrophic strikes. At one point, Dolar sends Boyka out of the ring, with a high kick. When everyone thinks the fight is over, Boyka returns into the ring before the 10 count, catching a sight of the mop and bucket used for sopping up blood after the fights, which resembled the ones he used during his training. He removes the blood-soaked mop pad, and binds it over his knee. He adopts a new fighting technique, that incorporates aspects of grappling, dirty boxing headbutts and elbows, wrestling, and wushu. He finally defeats Dolar by fracturing his shin, and shattering Gaga's and everyone else's beliefs that he could not defeat Dolar. Farnati goes to the warden's office in sorrow, losing a wager and a lot of money. He shoots Rezo, but Kus eventually kills him. Despite winning the competition, Boyka is not permitted to leave, because the guards have not yet discovered Turbo. Since Boyka is to blame for Turbo's escape, Kus declares that Turbo will remain free, while Boyka is sent to his original prison in Russia, to which he responds that he doesn't care. However, it turns out that Boyka, like other defeated jail fighters, will be executed. But Turbo comes to his rescue. Gaga is already waiting for Boyka and Turbo when they arrive at the car. Gaga, it turns out, ignored Rezo's advice, and instead upped his stake in Boyka's victory. He explains to Boyka that he always knew him as the best and strongest fighter in the world, especially when he is angry, so he risked his entire fortune for Boyka's win, and duped the other mobsters all along. Not only that, but he went above and beyond by saving and concealing Turbo when he managed to flee, Following that, Gaga presents Boyka with a suitcase full of cash, in recognition of his triumph in the PSC tournament. Boyka ultimately reveals his first name, Yuri, to Turbo, before they part ways. Turbo finally discloses his real name as Jericho, not aware that Boyka has a specific fondness for religious references. Boyka expresses his thanks to Turbo for liberating him. Turbo challenges him to a future fight, which Boyka accepts. Boyka steps out of a vehicle joyfully, with a bag full of money, to his freedom. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.